Hi, it's Benny the Bookie again. Welcome to my channel. If you like this video, please click the like button and subscribe. We always like to have more subscribers to the channel. Today, we're going to review a book that hasn't come out yet. The published date for this book is November 21st, so just a few days. I was lucky enough to get an ARC from the publisher and through NetGalley. And so this is my honest review of the book. The book we will be discussing today is SAEVUS CORAX by K.G. Parker. And now, K.G. Parker is actually the pen name of a very well-known British novelist, Tom Holt. So this is the second book of the series. I read the first book, and I have to say I enjoyed this book more than I thought I was going to enjoy it. It's a much improvement over the first book, I feel. I'm going to get into one of the things that you may find very enjoyable about reading this series of books. It's a series of 3, it's a trilogy. Or you might just not care for it. Different tastes for different people, I guess. But I will definitely go over why I think that there's some people really like this series of books and why others just, they don't like it. And they don't like this book, especially some of the reviews I have seen. But I have to say I did like it. And once again, I want to thank the publisher, Orbit, which I'll also say with Orbit, I mean, they are, if you are into fantasy, you have to read Orbit, the publisher Orbit's books. They are so good. I mean, I'm surprised. And luckily, through NetGalley, I've been able to read many of them this year and find some new authors that I wouldn't even have tried first, that I had the chance to be introduced to. So, getting back to the book itself. SAEVUS CORAX, he is what you would call a battlefield scavenger, I guess you'd call him. That's his business. And what he does is that he will pay for the rights to battlefields after the battle is over. And then him and his group of 500, they will scavenge. And scavenge and clean it up. And it's like, they're like cleaners of a battlefield. And that's one of the things always the books start with, is that he's, cleaning a battlefield up, and then something happens and it becomes more of an adventure. And so here, once again, you have where he cleans up a battlefield, and him and his work friends and buddies, and I want to go over one of the work friends in a minute. And I think this is one of the things that you really get in this book and in the series, is his gallows humor. I find it very entertaining at times. Definitely chuckled a few times while reading this book. But anyway, so his group of 500 and himself, they leave the battlefield and go to their next conquest. And a few of his closest followers, or people, or employees, if you will, are kidnapped. And what happens, I won't go into too many spoilers, that they're kidnapped, and he finds out from the kidnapper, that he will have to capture a castle. And if he captures the castle in a certain amount of time, they will let his friends, work family go. That's kind of the start of the book, and that's kind of the start of the book and the summary that you get like on Goodreads, for example. But really, for me, that wasn't the interesting part of this book and what made it enjoyable for me. There is a great backstory, romance, if you will, on the that is set with a backdrop of a rotting battlefield, for example. And then the other thing is, which was such a surprise to me, you're introduced to the Hetson, who are, as it is described in the book by our first person narrator, SAEVUS, CORAX, nice, civilized cannibals. And that probably helped me very much to recommend this book. Just those sections about the society of civilized, nice cannibals. And from this, right here, you can see if you like gallows humor, you like black humor, this book would be for you. If you don't, well, you probably should read something else, to be honest. You won't enjoy it. And so I wanted to read just a small excerpt from the book, because this gives an idea of who his friends are. And it gives you a little bit idea, too, of who our main character is, SAEVUS, who is also the narrator of this book. And this is his friend Gombrias. And let's just say he enjoys his work on the battlefield. He collects body parts from famous people. He rents a converted smithy in the Boek, where he's got them all on display, dissected and nailed up on boards or carefully pickled in bottles. And to his great joy, he found Count Sidric, dry and reasonably well preserved, apart from a hole in his skull, which ruined it as a collectible. After a certain amount of careful thought, he decided to keep an eye and 6 fingers for himself, and the other eye and fingers, noses, toes, ears, slang for male body part, and fingers. And scalp to use as swapsies with other collectors. The residue, after much soul-searching, he chucked on the bonfire along with those of the common people who are dry enough to burn. So you can see he has a colorful group of friends, work family, if you will. And Gombrias is probably one of them. So, what makes this book different in some ways? I truly believe the whole book is an inside joke for those that like heroic medieval fantasies, for example. Because you don't have that with your main character in the book, in this first-person narrative with SAEVUS CORAX. I mean, he can be ruthless, despicable at times by his actions. He still has a sense of somewhat loyalty to his friends and work family. But he's not a likable character. He's a coward at times. He's not, a big muscle-bound brute that's going to save the day, like a lot of heroic fantasies have in them. And it's sort of an inside joke in this for those that like those books, because also he is very egotistical. It's a first-person narrative, and he is the narrator. And at times, you feel like he's almost writing this book because he wants to entertain himself rather than for the audience. And you'll even get that from time to time. I mean, he will go on sometimes for pages just prattling along, and then he'll remember, oh, well, you're probably not interested in this, Let's get back to the story. And he wants you throughout the book not to like him. And so that's part of the inside joke too. He's not likable, and he says he isn't likable. And he does some ruthless things within these pages, as he did in the first book. And he'll even tell you, it's almost like he's daring you not to finish the book. It's almost at times I felt like reading this narrative, this voice of SAEVUS CORAX. That it was almost like, why are you reading this? He wanted to say to me. Why don't you just put this book down? I'm not worth it. Don't spend the time reading about my adventures. So that's part of the joke. And you can find that kind of funny, and humorous, if you will. Now, if you don't, and that's the one negative I have. If you don't get the joke, you don't like gallows humor, you're not going to like this book, I don't think. You have to really be in the mood for this book. And maybe I was more in this mood reading this book after I've read many heroic fantasies. And you can see some of my other reviews about, like for John Gwynne, which I love so much. This is something completely different to John Gwynne. And the other thing I want to say is the main positive to me has to be the introduction to the Society of Cannibals, the Hetsune. I hope we see them again in future books. I mean, it's well written out. I'm not going to give any spoilers, just to explain that you will, if you like societies of civilized cannibals, this is the book for you. If you don't like reading about cannibals that are even civilized and nice, probably want to read something else. I'm kind of being like SAEVUS CORAX right now. But I enjoyed it. And also, giving credit to the author, he's created this voice, and this first-person narrative and this voice he's created for SAEVUS CORAX, it is great. It really is. I mean, you almost feel like SAEVUS CORAX is telling you a story, which you want. The author's imagination of this character he's created. And with that voice, at times, you may not like it, but you keep reading, especially if you like these type of books with the gallows humor. And a little humor that's a little, offbeat compared to some other things. So I enjoyed it, and unfortunately I have to say it. I didn't think I would say it, because I think I gave the first book maybe 3 stars, because I liked the premise, but I didn't know if I was ever going to read another book by K.G. Parker, but I'm glad I did. And so SAEVUS CORAX in this world is certainly growing on me, and I very much look forward to book 3 of the series when it comes out. So this is Ben the Bookie, as always. Support your local libraries, and we will talk again. Thank you.